been almost a month since the 2020 Formula 1 season had drawn to a close, after what will go down in history as one of the strangest years of racing the sport has ever seen. We knew before the final Grand Prix had been run that Lewis Hamilton and Mercedes had each sealed a 7 World Championship title, but what else did we learn this year? It's a bit of a scary thought that Lewis Hamilton might not have peaked yet, but if this year is anything to go by, there is a capacity for even more from the 7-time world champion. Hamilton won 11 of the 16 races he started, was absolutely sublime in Turkey among other races, and set new records. But he did it all while shining a light on equality and racial injustice, using his platform to say what he believes is right and to push for change. He says that provided him with an added motivation to perform in order to retain that platform, and has shown him he's not yet at his full potential. Regardless of how well Sergio Perez did this season, how many of us really thought that Red Bull would change tack and bring him in to replace one of their own? That was the beauty of the driver market in 2020. It kept you on the edge of your seat till the very end. And though on paper it might not look as exciting next year, with several multi-year deals now in place, you really do never know what might happen. After all, Perez had a contract with Racing Point for 2021. Who could have seen 2020 panning out the way it did back in February? At the time, even if you had predicted COVID-19 having the major impact it did, you'd still have been a brave person to call Ferrari replacing Sebastian Vettel with McLaren driver Carlos Sainz. You'd have been even braver to say Sainz was leaving a team on the up, third in the Constructors' Championship, and with Mercedes power to come for a Ferrari team that would end up limping to 6th overall. Vettel was left confused by Ferrari's decision, but heading to Aston Martin now looks like something of a promotion for the 4-time world champion based on 2020 form. Still, things aren't all doom and gloom at Maranello. There were flashes of performance during this season, and more excitingly, there were some stunning highlights from Charles Leclerc. He had stamped his authority on the team in his debut season at Ferrari, but Leclerc didn't let this year's struggles stop his own progression as a driver. In a difficult car, he managed podiums in 2 of the first 4 races, 3 further top 4 results, and some outstanding qualifying laps. Mental strength, resilience, the capacity to deliver even in a car that was often well off the pace. The future is bright with Leclerc. The future is also bright with Max Verstappen, but the level that the Dutchman can perform at continues to prove to be a problem for his teammates. Verstappen largely single-handedly took the fight to Mercedes this season, while Alex Albon looked set for a potential win in the opening race before his season unraveled. Podiums in Mugello and Bahrain were encouraging, but all too often he just couldn't get near enough to Verstappen to satisfy the team fully, leading to Perez replacing him for 2021. Given how Pierre Gasly also struggled alongside Verstappen, the question is now whether any driver can stand shoulder to shoulder with Mighty Max. And speaking of Gasly, he provided one of the most standout moments of a remarkable 2020 season with his emotional victory at the Italian Grand Prix. A little over a year since his demotion from Red Bull to AlphaTauri, the AlphaTauri driver was on the podium for the 2nd time in 10 races and showed that his 2nd place in Brazil in 2019 was no fluke. The win boosted his form even more as he finished in the top 6 in back-to-back races in Germany and Portugal, and looks set to take another before retiring in Imola a week later, putting him firmly back in discussions when it came to an Albon replacement if needed. Red Bull opted to keep him where he is, but he has turned his career trajectory around with a very impressive season. Monza was the scene of Gasly's win, but it also saw Lance Stroll pick up his first podium for Racing Point and the 2nd of his career. That came at a venue where he started on the front row back in 2017, qualifying 4th in treacherous conditions and starting 2nd in his rookie season. But Stroll showed that wasn't a one-off for him when low grip levels provide a bit of a leveler, as he scored his maiden pole position this year in the chaotic Turkish Grand Prix qualifying session. His final lap was excellent, and his opening stint similarly, so as he led away before tire issues and front wing damage led to an extra pit stop and late race difficulty. With just 4 races to go this season, a dramatic one that had seen multiple podium finishers, surprise winners, and plenty of shock results, there was 1 point separating Renault, McLaren, and Racing Point. That was the order arriving in Turkey, and it would be reshuffled a number of times before the end of the year. Racing Point had a pole, 2 podiums, and a win to come. Renault also had a podium ahead, but McLaren's consistency, ensured they finished third in the Constructors' Championship by 7 points. The fight was enhanced by Ferrari dropping into the midfield, opening up podium opportunities. In the end, 7 teams scored podiums and 4 of them wins, with McLaren, Racing Point, Renault, Ferrari and AlphaTauri each having weekends where they scored more than 25 points. What made some of the battles all the more exciting in 2020 was the uncertainty about which teams would perform well at which venues, as multiple tracks were announced late. Mugello, Nürburgring, Portimao, Imola and Turkey were all added to the calendar in response to COVID-19 pandemic, while Bahrain's outer circuit also provided a new challenge. And it became clear the drivers were thrilled to let loose on classic European tracks, some of which looked like they wouldn't ever host a Grand Prix, with gravel traps, significant undulations, and challenging layouts generally resulting in exciting races as a result. While Carlos Sainz gets to fulfill a dream of racing for Ferrari, the driver replacing him did not fall foul of agreeing a deal too early in the year when moving teams. Daniel Ricciardo had another extremely strong year with Renault, finally getting his first and second podium with the team and earning Cyril Abiteboul a tattoo, and now moves to the team that finished 2 positions higher in the constructor standings. In an impressive season, Ricciardo scored 75 points in the 7 races from Spa to Imola alone and was only outqualified once in the dry by the highly rated Esteban Ocon. The prospect of him in an ever-improving McLaren car that will have a Mercedes power unit next season is an enticing one. While Ricciardo was in sparkling form in 2020, the same cannot be said of his old Red Bull teammate Sebastian Vettel, who endured the worst season of his career in terms of points. From 17 races, Vettel managed just 33 points, and 15 of those came when he finished third in Turkey. 14 came from his solid finishes in Hungary and Spain, meaning the other 14 races yielded just 4 points, all scored with P10 finishes. Vettel retired just twice, the rest of the time failing to finish in the top 10, and his Turkey podium was his only score of the final 5 rounds. Ferrari had let the 4-time world champion know he was no longer needed before the season even begun, and coupled with an uncompetitive car, it resulted in a painful year. A fresh start at Aston Martin is exactly what he needs. The Schumacher name is back in Formula 1, and it is there completely through the achievements of the driver carrying it. Mick Schumacher won a fiercely contested Formula 2 championship this year to go with his 2018 European Formula 3 title, meaning he steps up as the reigning Formula 2 champion just like George Russell and Charles Leclerc did before him. Schumacher will race for Haas, and while the American outfit has not had the strongest 2020, they will hope to benefit from a significantly improved Ferrari power unit next year that will give the German a better chance of showing what he can do. It might be the perfect scenario for Schumacher though, who has tended to do a lot of learning in his first year in a new category and show clear improvements in his second season, while his racecraft has been particularly impressive. Even if the team's competitiveness doesn't improve, Haas was regularly fighting Alfa Romeo this year, setting up the prospect of a Schumacher vs Raikkonen on-track battle some 14 years after Kimi was fighting against Mick's father Michael for championship glory. Schumacher will do well to make it another chapter of Schumacher vs Alonso battles next year though, as a double world champion who regularly fought with his legendary father returns to Formula 1 with Renault, or Alpine as they will be known in 2021. Renault might be getting a rebrand, but they remain the same team that Alonso won his 2 world titles within 2005 and 2006, and they are getting a driver who is hungry for success after 2 years away from the sport. There were no guarantees Alonso would be back when he left McLaren at the end of 2018, but after racing elsewhere, he felt he still had unfinished business in Formula 1, and the prospect of new regulations enticed him to return. While he will have to wait until 2022 for those new cars, the extremely tight midfield gives Alonso the chance to race for significant points and podiums in a way he rarely got to in his latter McLaren years, and it just seems to somehow access another level when there's a hint of a strong result. We should be seeing plenty of that next year. And that's been it for this video. If you enjoyed this video, then make sure to leave a like and don't forget to subscribe. Apart from that, I hope you're an awesome day, and bye bye.